Let's jump right in, guys. I am sorry for the delay. I can only explain this by letting you know that I was all set and then I accidentally closed my browser. And then I had to reload up all the videos that I'm going to show you. But today is a big day because this is the beginning of, I believe, a very lengthy news cycle. What we learned yesterday evening that Vladimir Putin is once again up to his same old tricks, trying to interfere in the US election and also spread pro Russian propaganda through both useful idiots and people who actually knew what the F they were doing and knew that they were undermining our US democratic process and just reaping the benefits of dangerous propaganda from the Kremlin that is furthering a terrible, bloody, unjust war in Ukraine. So that's what we're talking about. Putin is back. And I don't even think he ever quit. And we can talk about that in a bit. So specifically, the breaking news relates to the Justice Department unsealing an indictment against two Russian nationals who work for RT, Russian television, which is paid for, which is an arm of the Russian government, paid for by Vladimir Putin. And by that, I mean, it's not his money, but he controls the government, right? So Putin and the Kremlin pay for RT. And these two folks from RT, who I will talk about in a moment, one is Lena and one is, I feel like his name is Kostya. They worked over the past almost a year to get two media folks, two founders, by the name of, and I'm going to pull these people up for you right now. Let's do it.
15th, 2006.
That was the wrong thing. I wanted to pull up a slide for you so you could see the folks I am talking about. Give me a second. These two Russians were paying Lena Chen, I believe is her name, and her husband. She is, I want to just get this. I thought I had this photo. Here we go. I think I've got the slide now ready for you. Great. Okay. So there were these two people, Canadian, sorry. Let me just back this up. This Chen and Donovan are married, and she is a Canadian, he's a U.S. citizen, and they live in Tennessee. And they started a company about a year ago called Tenet. And Tenet has been backed almost entirely by the Kremlin. And what you are looking at right now in this photo are three of the commentators who were paid millions of dollars by Tenet, essentially by Putin. This is money that went through a lot of shell companies. These folks that you're looking at here, as you can see, I think I'll make this a little bit bigger for you, even though I made it smaller. What we are looking at are people we have talked about on this show. In the very center is Tim Pool. I just played you a crazy ass video of Tim Pool on Saturday, and I've got that clip again. He has been a very dangerous and really rabidly anti-American, mostly anti-Democrat commentator who thinks that Democrats should be rounded up, indicted, and killed. Yes, I will play you that video. And alongside of him is Dave Rubin on the left and Benny Johnson. And these were commentators. Their names are not revealed in the indictment, you guys, but these are commentators who, based on the descriptions in the indictment that was unsealed yesterday, have been paid millions of dollars by Vladimir Putin in exchange for videos. Now, to be clear, Tim Pool and Benny Johnson are saying that this was a leaked indictment. No, it was unsealed, not leaked. They're claiming that they had no idea and that they were victims too. But I got news for you. You can decide whether they were duped or whether they were turning a blind eye. Was this willful blindness, as they say? The indictment, again, does not name them specifically, but they have made clear that, yes, the descriptions of them as these commentators who were paid to exorbitant amount of money, which I will mention the price in a moment. I want to hold off on that for a second. Paid exorbitant amounts of money per video, adding into the millions of dollars, funneled through various shell companies, but ostensibly the contract they had was with this company based in Tennessee. Now, I want to point out some comments on Twitter to help you out with this. Sarah Burris says, so Lauren Chen, that was not Lena Chen, I'm sorry. Lauren Chen and Leon Donovan, they're the married couple who run this company in Tennessee called Tenet. And she was reading this indictment, and I agree with her that Lauren Chen and Leon Donovan knew that they were getting money from Russia to promote the propaganda and to promote MAGA. And okay, this is really important. It's very clear in the indictment. Their names are not mentioned. They're described as the founders of Tenet, but it's clear that's who they are based on the descriptions, and CNN and others have confirmed the identities of, that it all lines up. Like the commentators that I've spoken about have admitted, yes, that's them in the indictment. And Lauren Chen and Leon Donovan, the founders of Tenet, it's very clear that they were getting money from the Kremlin. Now, as you can see, Sarah Burris mentions that Chen is a Blaze TV host, and she is a Talking Points USA contributor. Okay, so there may be, just so you know, even though this indictment only refers to one US-based company that was getting money through Russian TV, essentially the Russian government. So Putin was paying for this US company to hire people like Tim Pool to make videos. What the question is who else is involved, not with Tenet, but how many other tenets are there out there? How many other shell companies in the U.S. exist that are paying folks to spread MAGA and Kremlin propaganda? What other schemes? And I got an answer for you, a small one, and there's a big one behind that. Now, I want to show you who these folks are. On the left, you can see Lauren Chen. And on the right, there is Liam Donovan. And I think I can make this, I want to make this a little bit bigger so I can actually see better. I just want to blow this up so I can read it. So you can see that, that Lauren Chen is Canadian born. Someone described her as a neo-fascist. She co-founded Tenet Media. And everyone's realizing, has she just been a Russian plant the whole time? She was used to spend this $10 million in total for these commentators. And to the right, I have her husband, Liam Donovan, and he is described as the president of Watch Tenet Now, so Tenet TV. I've got more photos for you guys to explain what happened in this indictment. And again, if you're just joining me, we are talking about the breaking news that was revealed in an unsealed indictment yesterday. The U.S. Department of Justice indicted not these two people. I'll get to who they indicted in a moment. But they indicted two Russian nationals who were working with these two people, Lauren Chen and Liam Donovan, who own, and I'm looking at I printed some stuff out that I'm looking at as I'm talking to you, but Lauren Chen and Liam Donovan founded the entity, a U.S.-based company based in Tennessee that was called Tenet Media. And Vladimir Putin had his Vladimir Putin's government, right? The Kremlin, he runs everything. He was behind these two RT employees who were working with both this couple here, with Lauren Chen and Liam Donovan. So they were the front companies. Chen and Donovan with Tenet Media were the ones who were entering into contracts with the folks I was showing you, with Tim Pool and others, who were producing videos with surprisingly pro-Kremlin, pro-Trump, pro-MAGA, anti-democratic content. And this is one thing that the U.S. Department of Justice revealed yesterday. Now, I want to show you this other slide. What you see is a screenshot here, and this might help, a screenshot from the indictment. And what I'm showing you here, and I want to try to, I'm going to blow this up again for myself to read. You might not be able to read this, but that's okay. That's kind of not the point. If this looks to you like something that a woman of a certain age might be catfished with, like saying, I'm a single doctor man who loves to travel and walk on beaches. This is me in my private jet. You would not be mistaken for what this vibe is in this photo, right? What this looks like to me here, and it probably should look like to you as well in this photo of this guy on this plane. What this should actually look like to you is some sort of fishing expedition here. This really, to me and to you, I hope, looks like that. Because what is this? This is the photo that I'm going to go back. That guy sitting on the plane, that was a CV of a gentleman. And his photo was shown. That was the only thing that Tim Pool and Benny Johnson were given to show them who the supposed backer of Tenet was, right? They had met, of course, Liam Donovan and Lauren Chen, but Liam and Lauren told people like, these influencers, these content creators like Tim Pool, that Lauren Chen and Liam, I'm going to show you their pictures. These two folks told Tim Pool and others that they had this backer behind the company. They knew that, they had worked for the RT before. They knew it was the Russian government paying them because we have in the indictment examples of that. But they told him that there was this guy backing them. And here is this guy, Edward Giorgiani or something like. I think Edward somebody. And his name kept changing the way they spelled it. So when Tim Pool said, well, who's funding your new business, your new startup? They said this guy, Edward. And Edward has a very exotic background. And they said Edward had been in, banking and personal finance, and he was supposed to this wonderful guy, impressive credentials. So Tim, like anybody else, Googled. And in fact, there are records of Liam Donovan. Let me back up. Sorry. Let me do this. Liam Donovan, right. And Lauren Chen, I believe there's records of at least one of them Googling who is this guy. They were told by their Russian handlers that this guy, Edward was behind everything. Well, Edward, you shouldn't be surprised to learn, does not exist. Edward is a fictitious person that is not a CV. But when anyone who should have known better, like Tim Pool, asked Liam and Lauren, hey, who's backing you? And they said, Edward. He Googles Edward's name. Nothing comes up. And he was concerned. So what they did is they went to their Russian handlers and said, guys, we can't find anything on Edward. So the Russian handlers made that picture. And that picture alone satisfied Tim Pool that this was all on the up and up. Okay, so let's just back up again and start at the beginning. These three commentators and several more, there are others as well. I think there's 7 named, not named, but unlisted. 7 commentators were listed. And these 3, at least these 3 have been revealed to be Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin, have been for nearly a year until this indictment came down, which was just, I think this summer, which was just unsealed yesterday. These 3 guys, and I'll say Tim Pool and team, these kind of supervillain commentators, have been paid millions of dollars over the past year by this shell company called Tenet, which is, in quotes, was, founded by this couple, Lauren and Liam. And Tim Pool and these guys believe that Lauren and Liam had this backer named Edward. And that was good enough for them to sign on to this deal. What we now know is Edward did not exist at all. He did not exist. Instead, we had the 2 Russians who have been indicted in this case. So that was yesterday. 2 people were indicted. And what was the indictment for? Well, it was fairly basic. It was for violating the FARA law, let me tell you exactly what this is because I just had it pulled up. It's the Foreign Agents Registration Act. It's a law in the United States that requires any individuals and entities to register with the Department of Justice if they are acting as agents of a foreign government. So far, the two people who were sued in this indictment were these two Russian television employees, right? So the people who were behind Tenet, the real ones, not the founders, according to this indictment, were acting as foreign agents for the Russian government, and they had not registered. Okay, so that is the story there. Now, their names were, their last surnames are Kalashnikov and Afanasvaya. And I think to make it easier, the first person went by, I think I've got the shorthand for their names here. Let me just open the indictment. Nope, it's right there. I apologize. We'll call her, his name is Kostya Kalashnikov. He was 31 or is 31, so we can call him Kostya. And then Elena Afanasvaya, who's 27, and she went by Lena. So I'm these two folks who have been indicted, Kostya and Lena, were indicted yesterday by the U.S. Department of Justice. And this indictment that was, I should say, the indictment was unsealed yesterday. They were indicted by a grand jury, and the Department of Justice just unsealed the indictment. And again, Lena and Kostya work for Russian Today. They are funded by Vladimir Putin. And the charges on which the Department of Justice indicted them yesterday were, the counts involved violation of the Foreign Agent Registration Act, okay, as well as a conspiracy to violate the FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Now, this indictment is only 32 pages. I read it last night. It's fairly straightforward for a lawyer. It may take a while if you're not used to reading these kinds of documents, and there are plenty of very good summaries. What's very helpful in this indictment is it lays out the history. It talks about the relationship between the so-called founders of this Tennessee-based company, right? That's Lauren and Liam, and their relationship with the people they refer to as the Russians. These are Kostya and Lena. And what's really helpful in this indictment is it makes very clear, even though they are not yet indicted, they knew or should have known that they were being paid by the Russian government. And the question is why they weren't also indicted. And it may be that they have been cooperating. We just don't know yet what that situation is. They may have flipped. So, you know, this basically began last summer. This basically began in the fall of 2023 when Kostya and Lena worked with this U.S. company. They helped them found Tenet, right? So there is a Tennessee-based company that we have been talking about. Now, let's go back to what we are looking at here. Now, I want to be really clear about how greedy and how self-centered and how self-aggrandizing people like Tim Pool were. Tim Pool and Benny Johnson, they make YouTube videos, and Tim Pool has, I think, his own like Pool TV. He's been streaming before people were live streaming, okay? So you may say, I keep referring to how much money these guys were making. They were making, if you can believe this, Tim Pool insisted on getting $100,000 per video. $100,000. That's what he negotiated. And somehow Benny Johnson negotiated something better. I don't remember how it went down with him, but I remember that somehow Tim Pool was making, a few million a year, and Benny was making, I think maybe the same amount per video, but he got a sign-on bonus. So I'm sure that really probably annoys that would kind of rankle Tim Pool that he did not get as good as of a deal. So now I want to move this off stage for a moment to talk more about this $100,000 a day. Now, I'm sorry, a video. If you're being paid, let me just say this. If someone comes to you and offers something so crazy, they didn't offer the 100,000, they offered a ton of money to them and they said, "We're starting up a company in Tennessee and we want you to put out content, a video every week. And we're going to give you the ideas of what you want." And of course, Tim Pool is saying now, "Well, I have editorial control." Okay, Tim, sure. Good for you. You say that, fine. But they were saying, "Hey, we're going to pay you. We're going to give you the ideas. We're going to tell you what we want you to do. We want you to put out a video because you have a big audience. We want you to put this out, video every week." And in the conversations Tim Pool had with the founders of Tenet, this is Lauren and Liam, the Tennessee company, when he says, "Well, who's backing you?" And they're like, "Oh, this really wealthy guy who used to be a banker who wants to support these causes that you're involved in. And his name is, Edward," or whatever I just told you the guy's name was. Let me just look at his name again. In his picture, they say, "It's this guy. Yeah, Edward. Here's this guy." They don't even show him the picture yet. They say, "Hey, Tim, some guy, Edward." And he's like, okay. He decides to do his own research and he can't find Edward on the internet anywhere. No sign of him at all. And so they send him that picture and say, "This is Edward." And Tim's like, "Cool. Now I want $100,000 of video." Come on, man. He knew something was up with that. He knew that Edward didn't exist and this was a front. There is no way. And this is my opinion. And I think this will come out soon. When you can name a price like that. And so this is what reminds me of. And I just have to say this to you. This is big money for these folks who were either willfully blind or useful idiots, or maybe didn't know. And let me just say this, Tim Pool, if he really didn't know who was paying him, don't you think he owed it to his audience to tell them, "I'm being paid $100,000 to tell you what I'm telling you now in this video"? And this may be a good moment for me to tell you guys. I am not being paid to tell you what I'm telling you. In fact, although I am associated with Mary Trump Media, I'm running this on my own YouTube station. And the reason why I'm always late every morning is, I pull my own video clips. I make all the slides. I do all my thumbnails. I turn on the lights here. There is no hair and makeup, right? I'm brushing my hair and putting on my lip gloss. Okay. This is a low budget operation. And the way I get paid, so far I have not gotten paid, but as you can see, I think I've got, I don't know, people watch live and then my videos sometimes, I've only been doing this for a month on this channel, but sometimes, a few hundred, and then, the more people who start watching, some videos get 4,000 views. What does that mean? Well, I've had enough hours and views that YouTube has so-called monetized me. And that means, and guys, I'm not boasting about this. This is what I'm telling you for full disclosure. What does that mean is that they play ads when you watch the video. I don't get to pick the ads. I think it's amusing that I've heard that sometimes they're Donald Trump ads. So I guess those are wasted on you guys. But I don't pick the ads. And then thank you, Jason. I don't pick the ads. And I think so far, I think I only became monetized 3 days ago or something. So far, I think I've made $180. I mean, on paper, which is cool, right? I mean, these lights, didn't fall off a coconut tree. You know what I mean? And I do spend a lot of time, you guys, doing this. But eventually, at some point, there'll be there's this YouTube thing called AdSense. And I guess at some point, I'm getting some kind of pin in the mail and then I get to sign up and blah, blah, blah. And then I'll get money. And you know what, guys, if I ever make more than I think, again, $100, when I break a certain point, I'll let you know what these advertisers are paying me every now and then, just so you can know. But let me tell you, I am not making $100,000 per video. Like I said in yesterday's show, people like Peter Doocy, who get paid by Fox News to be racist, homophobic, useful idiots for his corporate owners, for the Murdoch family, and for whatever I guess, the advertisers who like what he's doing. People like that, Peter Doocy, who's making $4 million a year, that it is really good work if you can get it. That is, if you don't have a soul. Okay, so I don't do that stuff. But speaking of Peter Doocy making $4 million from Fox News, that's the kind of money That's kind of money that people like Tim Pool were making. And so again, he named his price $100,000 per video. And what this reminded me of, and I know I've got my Gen X people on here, and I think there are even some baby boomers around, and maybe people who are nostalgic for the 90s. But do you remember in the 1990s, the era of the supermodel, not the supervillain? You may remember people like Naomi Campbell, Chrissy Turlington, Linda Evangelista. Are these names, guys, that you recognize? Candy Carol, I know if you're on here, you know Linda Evangelista's name. Yes, Gen X, Eric. Hell yes. And some boomers, but you know these supermodels, please, right? So don't you remember the famous line that Linda Evangelista said? She said, I don't know where the interview was, and I'm going to put it right up here for you. She said, I don't get out of bed for less than $100,000 a day. That's what she said. I feel like I need to make this bigger for you because she's so gorgeous. Okay, so this is a famous line. And she was ridiculed for this as being, what a bitch. But the deal was that, $10,000 a day would be a photo shoot day. And if she made a booking for less than that, I guess some even shoots, if it was an emergency shoot, maybe she'd be making more money. So if someone said, okay, could you just do this quick one photo for $1,000? She literally said, I don't get out of bed for less than $10,000 a day. So Tim Pool does not get out of bed for less than $100,000 a day. And I know there has been some inflation, but Tim Pool and that crew, they are no Linda Evangelista. And I will show you some pictures here. This is our Linda in her prime. This might have been even recently. Just stunning. She's a Canadian model. I don't think she has any relation, though, to Lauren Chen, the Canadian national who is backing this company in Tennessee. Now, I'm still on. This does relate to the people being paid $100,000 as Russian stooges to put up pro-Kremlin propaganda trashing Ukraine, trashing NATO, and also not just trashing the U.S. Democracy, but also trying to get Trump elected. And also, as this indictment revealed, there were also attacks on other countries as well, right? Their targets were not just the U.S., but also the other NATO countries, including Germany and France. Okay, and here are my supermodels. This is a great shot. The headline here was, nobody did model off-duty style like the 90s supers. And on your left, you have Linda Evangelista. In the center is Naomi Campbell. And I think that's Chrissy Turlington. On the right, you guys could correct me. There they are out clubbing in the 90s. And if you compare these folks, our supermodels, right, who were not getting out of bed for less than $10,000 a day, to our supervillains, our people who were paid by Vladimir Putin, let's look at them. Let's look at them for a second. These guys are trying to say they deserve a better day rate, even accounting for inflation, than people like the supermodels did. Okay, let's get back to the breaking news. Again, this did relate. Putin is paying people like Tim Pool to give this toxic mix of commentary to trash Ukraine, to try to interfere in the U.S. election. There's a separate story here, and I'm going to get to some examples of what they're doing, but there's a separate story that you also need to pay attention to, which is this. Yesterday, the Department of Justice also, separate from this indictment, and I'm looking at the press release, they issued a press release that they had disrupted what is called a covert Russian government-sponsored foreign malign influences operation. Okay, so this is in addition to indicting these two Russian nationals who were funneling Putin's money into Tim Pool and others to put up propaganda videos on the regular. In addition to that, the Justice Department busted and seized domain names and so on from these Russian-sponsored influence operations. And what they were doing, this is what I was slightly referring to in a moment ago, they were targeting U.S. audiences and elsewhere, trying to do the same thing, undermine NATO, undermine to stir up chaos in the U.S. and elsewhere. And actually, you guys, this is the much more interesting news because it is in this. If you look at this filing, like there's this, the press release, there's also a lengthy affidavit. And in this lengthy affidavit about seizing these domain names are exhibits. And I'm showing you this one right here. This says Exhibit A1. Exhibit A1 is the English language version of that exhibit. Exhibit not A1, I'm sorry. 8A is the English language version of it. 8B is the Russian language. I don't read Russian, but for those who do, sometimes there's different information. What these exhibits are the plans, the various plans that this influence operation had for trying to, these different projects that these domains were engaged in. And what this was, before I get into the details again, this is part of Putin trying to interfere in our election. So what they were doing is they relied on influencers, so people that we have not fully heard the names of yet, AI generated content, so artificial intelligence generated content, paid social media ads, and social media accounts, often fake accounts, to drive this internet traffic to the so-called cyber squatted and other domains. So they would buy a domain that looked very similar to a legit one and take it over. So this was 32 internet domains, and this was a company, they called them doppelganger domains, and this is a violation. What they were doing was a violation of our trademark laws, as well as it involved money laundering. I'm sorry, let me just add a footnote. In the indictment of the two Russian nationals, not only were they indicted for the FARA violations, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, failing to register as foreign agents. This is Kostya and Lena didn't do that. They were the people who were actually giving the money to the Tennessee company. Those guys were also indicted for money laundering. Okay, so we have this. In addition to that indictment, we have this new unsealed crackdown. The U.S. government seized 32 internet domain names, and they're called doppelgangers because, again, they look a lot like real domains. And the name of the business was referred to as the Social Design Agency, and so on. Lots of different businesses that were run by Russian organizations. And I'm reading to you from the press release. This is very helpful to understand. This reminds me a lot of what was going on in 2016. You might remember when the Kremlin was behind like fake rallies and fake Facebook pages. There was a lot of that going on in the U.S. Also, there was stuff like that going on in England regarding Brexit. So we have that. I'm going to read you from what Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco said. At Putin's direction, Russian companies, SDA, Struktura, and ANO Dialogue use cyber squatting, fabricated influencers, and fake profiles to covertly promote AI-generated false narratives on social media. And they said these narratives targeted specific American demographics and regions in a calculated effort to subvert our election. Our republic depends on elections that are free from foreign influence, and we will not rest in our efforts to expose foreign malign influence operations and protect our democracy. So, okay, when she says targeted demographic groups, my friends, that includes people like me, liberal Jews. These were fake accounts on social and elsewhere to try to get us to turn against the Democratic Party, right? And I want to show you, I want to read to you from Exhibit 8A, because there are tons of exhibits talking about the different campaigns. It's like a marketing campaign. If you've ever worked inside a company that has marketing campaigns, so you can imagine people sitting around saying, how do we hit our target audience to get the effects we want? So Exhibit 8A talks about the Good Old USA Project. And the Good Old USA Project, I will read, there's like an intro. I'll tell you about this. There's some goals and objectives. And the basic intro is this is the English translation here. The current international environment is known for, first and foremost, severe hostility of the U.S. toward Russia. And the USA has been trying to maintain the global leadership by strategically defeating Russia, right? And so they talk about the USA political parties. Some of this I'm going to show you is redacted, but the political party, there's political party A and political party B. Political party A is the Republican Party. You can figure this out. And B is a Democratic Party. And it says, this is clear, he's supporting the Republicans. It makes sense for Russia to put a maximum effort to ensure that the USA Party A, meaning the Republicans, the Republican point of view, first and foremost, the opinion of Donald Trump supporters wins over the U.S. opinion, public opinion. Did you hear me? It makes sense for Russia to put a maximum effort to ensure that the Republican Party point of view, first and foremost, the opinion of Donald Trump supporters wins over the U.S. public opinion. I am reading you from this exhibit. This was the plan. And now it says, it should be noted, though, that currently there is a real chance to steer the U.S. public opinion in the right direction by using the tools they're talking about, like cyber squatting, fake accounts, propaganda that's paid for. Right? These things are linked, I hope you see. The indictment of the 2 Russian nationals for not registering as foreign agents in this conspiracy to pay millions of dollars to U.S. influencers and the money laundering that was involved in paying them, that is obviously linked to this. So some people should be shaking in their boots because it feels like this plan, the good old USA, and some of the other plans that I'm going to read you a bit about, it seems like they're linked to many more nodes than little old Tim Pool and his friends and little old, this tiny little company in Tennessee. I mean, I think $10 million is a lot of money for them to be spending, certainly. And I think $100,000 is a hell of a lot of money for Tim Pool to be paid for one of his videos. But in the scheme of things, Vladimir Putin has been spending a lot more money. So this morning, there are a lot of people very worried. I believe that they're going to get busted soon. Okay, so what were the goals and objectives of this good old USA? This good old USA project? Goals and objectives: to secure a victory of a Republican Party candidate, Donald Trump, or one of his current internal party opponents at the U.S. presidential election to be held in November of 2024. Okay, that is the objective. And so that is one of the things they do. Now, how are they? And this is, I'm only going to show you 8A, guys, because there's so much more. I'm only going deep on this one because we could be here all day. But here are the target audience for this good old USA project to try to get Donald Trump elected, right? At the time that they wrote this up, it wasn't clear that he was going to be necessarily the candidate, but now we know he is, right? Because it took, we needed a primary season and so on. Okay. Who are the target audiences on this bullet point? American Jews. It's right there. I'm a target. So exciting. Finally targeted. No, I'm kidding. This is disgusting. Okay. So who are the targets? First, residents of, and if you just jumped in, this is the part of what Merrick Garland's DOJ just revealed, in addition to indicting those 2 Russian nationals for failing to register as foreign agents for money laundering and this conspiracy that involved paying Tim Pool and other right-wing hateful influencers millions of dollars over the past year. In addition to that, the U.S. Department went in and seized like 32 domain names and uncovered that there is this massive malignant influence operation underway in Russia. And one of the projects, just one of the many projects, is this good old USA project designed to secure a victory for Donald Trump. That's it. That's what it says. And okay, who is the target audience? First, residents of swing states whose voting results impact the outcomes of the elections more than other states. They list the swing states. They cite the New York Times, Indiana College. They did their homework. Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I am a double target. I'm an American Jew in Michigan. Okay, it's not all about me, but I'm just trying to make it relatable. So they know who the swing states are. Who else are they targeting for this good old USA project? I wonder if they called it good old USA because it sounds like Make America Great Again, but not quite. Anyway, the next group is residents of conservative states where traditional values are strong, who more often vote for candidates of the Republican Party. So they're also targeting Alabama, Kansas, Texas, Wyoming, and Louisiana. Someone in the comments say that I can speak without breathing. Should I breathe more? I'll try. U.S. citizens of Hispanic descent, the aforementioned American Jews that I said earlier, and this is really interesting. They're also targeting community of gamers, users of Reddit and image boards such as 4chan, which is the backbone of the right-wing trends in the U.S. segment of the internet. Okay. So they also talk about the toolkit for that project. I don't want to either talk about, again, I'm not going deep, but they have a very lengthy plan here. The commentary campaign. They also have targeted advertising and working with influencers to get them to participate. Okay. And roll out real comments. I've got one other campaign that I want to tell you about. This is Exhibit 9A. Briefly, guerrilla media campaign in the United States. And this is the information situation in the U.S. differs dramatically from other Western countries. The key to this situation is a high level of polarization of American parties. So they talk about this. With this campaign, they're also trying to put into the campaign topics, encroaching poverty, risk of job loss for white Americans. Oh, they're leaning in to white privilege here. Privileges for people of color, perverts, and the disabled. I'm reading this to you. So they're going through what they're talking about disseminating sample posts for people to put out, memes, including characters and collages, and video content, and including news stories in the Fox News style. How are they doing this? This guerrilla media campaign strategy would involve, this is kind of incredible, monitoring of U.S. media and social media accounts of major Republican Party politicians, and then creating a text factory with a minimum of 4 to 5 main topic-based recommendations. They're putting these out on social media. They're also adding 40 to 60 comments, and so on and so on and so on. So if you've ever wondered whether someone is a Russian bot because they're repeating immediately some comment someone else said from you, it could be. You know, I'm on Twitter a lot, as you know, and I can notice when I'm suddenly being attacked for something that I said, and it seems like uniform, and there are ways to check. I could be on a list, but sometimes it just looks like it's one of these malignant campaigns. Now, everyone who hates you on the internet is not a Russian bot, is not a paid commentator, but it's worth looking into. Now, before we go, and before we get to Crazy Town, I told you a lot, used a lot of names and told you that we looked at some Tim Pool content, but I really want you to see now what it is that Russian propaganda has done. And so the first thing I'm going to show you is this brief Tim Pool clip that I showed you on Saturday. And then I'm going to show you Don Jr., yes, Donald Trump Jr., on Tim Pool's show, repeating the same Russian talking points. And if you don't remember, Don Jr. is the guy who said back in, I think it was the summer of 2015 or 2016, when they had the meeting in Trump Tower in New York, and he was there with the Kremlin-backed folks, where, according to the Mueller report, they did not have enough evidence that there was an agreement for them to interfere in the U.S. election, but there was parallel conduct. And we know that Russia did. And this is when they were talking about, when Donnie said, I would love it, especially later in summer, dirt on Hillary Clinton. Remember that? Well, this is the same Don Jr. now working again with the Russians via Tim Pool. So first, let me play the Tim Pool clip that I believe I had. Oops, let me just grab that. Sorry. When I logged out of here, I lost that clip, so I need to find it. It was from September 1st. Give me a second. Okay, I'm playing it for you right now.
Should Democrats be in jail? No question. When Donald Trump gets elected, should he start locking them up? No question. Should there be lists of Democrats that need to go to jail? 100%. And the reason for that is they've committed crimes. We need to make sure that when Donald Trump wins, we've got an attorney general, a deputy attorney general, a head of the CIA and the FBI. Kash Patel would be fantastic. We can have attorney general. There's some names floating around. And then they can start having their investigators and the feds issuing subpoenas, pulling up evidence, and with real evidence, bring them to judges for warrants. Then these people can spend three years of their lives fighting tooth and nail for the crime against the government for crimes they committed, and we can prove. Yeah. And the reason why we put them on trial is that we can show the whole world we will uncover what you've done. We will make sure everyone knows, and you will be held accountable for it.
Not just jail, they should get the death penalty. You know, we actually used to have the punishment for treason in this country.
Okay. I'm trying to, I don't know if I can pull that down. I am trying to do that, guys, but let me just pull up Donnie and that will solve the problem.
Young men to die as cancer.
Okay.
What's your opinion on the solution to the Ukraine war?
Cut off the money. It's the only way you get them to the table, right? As long as, we're literally creating the oligarch class of billionaire in Ukraine with whatever's being siphoned off, whether it's Zelensky, whether it's this, while they send young men to die as cannon fodder on the front lines because they couldn't.
Okay, I didn't want to listen to his propaganda. Don Jr. there is just voicing Russian propaganda about Ukraine. This is, from what I've read, one of the main things that Vladimir Putin has been focused on in this campaign. Now, I don't know when that interview was. I don't know if that was in the window when Tim Pool was being paid or not, but it does raise a lot of questions about whether Donnie is a useful idiot or worse than that. Now, I want to say one last thing about this before I pivot to our next topic and then to Crazy Town. This is not the first time, as you know, that there have been allegations that that the Russians have been interfering in the election. We had the Internet Research Agency, which was a similar kind of bot farm that was indicted back when Robert Mueller was the special counsel, right? And I don't think those guys ever. I think in a lot of the cases when people get indicted who are Russian nationals, there's nowhere to be found, and that is the same thing right now. Kostya and Lena are on the lam, right? They're not. They have not been arraigned. They've been indicted on paper, right? So we're going to have to see whether charges are brought against people like the Tennessee-based company, founders, whether Lauren and Liam will have flipped and whether they'll plead, and whether any of these other people, if there's more evidence that they themselves were engaged in these conspiracies, they could be in trouble. But it's not just these folks, right? There are suspicions, and there have been, that candidates themselves are somehow in this and getting money from Vladimir Putin. And so when I chose the title today, Putin Pays Them, as you may know, I was referring back to the allegations, the video that was, or the audio that was disclosed back, that dated back to 2016, that Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy, it was when Paul Ryan was Speaker of the House, and Kevin McCarthy had been in a meeting, left the meeting, and this was a meeting that actually was with either the Ukrainian Prime Minister of the time or Ukrainian leader at the time, warning them about Vladimir Putin, right? Because there had already been, Russia was already angry at that time with Barack Obama for the sanctions on Russia because of the aggression in Ukraine back then. Not this full-blown war that we're in now. It was bad enough then. And so at that time, they were being warned. And at that time, we hear Kevin McCarthy suggest that Putin is paying Trump. So I want to play, this is an interview with Adam Entos, the New Yorker reporter who broke the story, talking about that, just to remind you. Because I believe, and similarly then as now, I think there's some members, Republican politicians who are involved. In particular, I don't want to accuse him directly, but it was very strange that Mike Lee, who is a senator, a U.S. senator, from Utah was actually set up at the was guided by I think it was a tenant people, or it could have been Tim. I think it was not Tim Pool, but it was one of the other commentators that Putin paid. It was this guy on the right. What is this guy? Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson encouraged Mike Lee, the senator from Utah, to set up this based Mike Lee account. And just after hearing about this indictment, Mike Lee put out a tweet suggesting it was fake news. So it makes me wonder whether he's on the take, it is or just a useful idiot, or both. So let's listen to this back from 2016.
And his scheduled meetings with the Speaker of the House.
Sorry.
The Ukrainian Prime Minister is visiting Capitol Hill
This is
on
quiet, I'm
June
sorry.
15th, 2016, and his scheduled meetings with the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, and the Majority Leader, Mr. McCarthy. After that meeting, after the Ukrainian Prime Minister leaves, Paul Ryan, Mr. McCarthy, and other top Republican leaders have a private conversation in which they initially start off by discussing what they had heard from the Ukrainian Prime Minister, which is basically Russia's role meddling in European and Ukrainian politics. The day before this meeting with the Ukrainian Prime Minister, the news breaks, the Washington Post breaks it, that the DNC has been hacked by the Russians. So McCarthy basically takes the conversation and turns it to what is happening in the United States. He begins by saying, I'll guarantee you that's what it is. The Russians hacked the DNC and got the op research that they had on Trump. And then McCarthy laughs. McCarthy then adds, there's two people I think Putin pays, Rohrabacher and Trump. There's then laughter by some of the lawmakers in the room, and then McCarthy adds, swear to God. Ryan then interjects and says, quote, this isn't off the record. No leaks, all right? Ryan then adds, this is how we know we're a real family here. We first approached Ryan and McCarthy's offices to tell them we were publishing this. And we told them what we were going to have Ryan and McCarthy saying. And their response was to say it never happened. That
First
there
deny.
was no conversation like this. They said that it was untrue. They called it fiction. Later, we told them that we had a transcript of the conversation. And then they suggested that the transcript was false, that it was maybe even made up. Certainly inaccurate, they said. When we told them finally that we had listened to an audio recording of this conversation, they adjusted their statement. And what Ryan's office told us was that that McCarthy had delivered, in effect, an.
Okay. So again, that was Adam Entos of The New Yorker being interviewed by the Washington Post. I think you remember this, right? Okay. So this has been on our minds forever. And Donald always said, Russia, 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 it's a hoax. It has never been, right? We're going to learn much more. This is the beginning of October surprise season. Okay, guys. So I've got, believe it or not, this, and I know we went over, and I don't care because this is big news. We had to lay the foundation today. This has been big news that Putin has been paying influencers, and more is going to come out, I assure you, over the next days and weeks. This is too big. This is the tip of the iceberg. Now, if this had not broken yesterday, there were so many other news stories that would have been leads. And I don't want us to miss out on this. So just two quick things. First, Liz Cheney, folks. Liz Cheney. Yes, Dick Cheney's daughter, Liz Cheney, the one who lost her seat because she stood up for what was right. But Liz Cheney, who is also very, has different values than me when it comes to things like abortion rights and other social issues and even probably economic issues. But what we share in common is that we deeply care about democracy. She was one of the few Republicans who stood up to Trump after the insurrection. She is someone who was a supporter of Cassidy Hutchinson, who'd worked for I'm about to say Mike Pence. She worked for the chief of staff for. He had so many. Mark, tell me his last name. I always get Kevin McCarthy and Donald's last chief of staff. Someone in the chat, tell me who was it. He's Kevin McCarthy's like look-alike. At any rate, she was working for Donald Trump's as an assistant to Donald Trump's chief of staff in the White House during the insurrection, and she came out and told her story, guys. And that's kind of amazing. At any rate, Mark Meadows, thank you. God. At any rate, they always looked alike to me, Mark Meadows and Kevin McCarthy for some reason. At any rate, let's listen to Liz Cheney doing what she finally needed to do, which I think will give other Republicans permission to do the same.
Deeply about this, and because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris.
That's incredible. Not surprising, but is a little bit earth-shattering. I'm really proud of her for making that decision. We need people like that who know that this is about the will of the people, who want to support our system and are not power hungry for their own self-aggrandizement or trying to become rich off politics, or just believe that the ends justify the means. She is an American patriot as far as I'm concerned. Now, one more thing before Crazy Town. Goldman Sachs, the giant investment bank, has said that the economy will do better under Kamala Harris. I kid you not.
Take the deficit, 5.8 trillion he'd add. She'd only. Go ahead. Yeah, totally. We have excellent counters of all political persuasions, but we also do have nonpartisan groups like the Penn Wharton group that put out their budget model and said that Donald Trump would take the deficit, 5.8 trillion he'd add, she'd only add 1.2 trillion. You had Goldman Sachs that came out today, and they said that the GDP will significantly decrease under Donald Trump and it'll continue to increase under Kamala Harris. Look at what Moody's has said, also nonpartisan, talking about how if you're going to round up a bunch of immigrants and you're going to have tariffs, which he keeps saying isn't a tax on consumers, and that's what the national tax is that people are talking about, if you're going to implement tariffs, guess what's going to happen? The economy is going to suffer for it. That's not what Kamala Harris is proposing.
Okay, so Goldman Sachs. Now, one last thing. Kamala Harris can speak for herself. And in addition to folks being concerned about Donald Trump's tariff ideas and other things that could destabilize the economy if he were put in office again, Kamala Harris is rocking it when it comes to small businesses, entrepreneurs. She is suggesting raising the amount you can deduct in terms of expenses when you do a startup. I think it's great. I think this will encourage people because a lot of us have jobs, day jobs, that we have gig economy things. And I think she's got some great ideas in addition, of course, to building housing and the like. The fact that Goldman Sachs taking everything in all together from what Kamala Harris has expressed as her policies and Donald Trump is saying that our economy would shrink under Donald Trump and grow under Kamala Harris is kind of earth-shattering. But it was eclipsed by this other news. Okay, guys. So now I want to play for you our Crazy Town video. And sorry, I can't do it without the Crazy Town music. It's just a law. So let me get that going now. And we will play it. This is good.
Can't imagine New Hampshire voting for him. Anybody in New Hampshire, because they're watching right now, but anybody in New Hampshire that votes for Biden and Kamala, I really think I call her.
So guys, I feel like you might not have realized this. I'm going to play this for you again. This was this week. This wasn't, the 2020 election. This was Donald Trump this week being confused about who his opposition is, who he is running against. Let's play it one more time because this is crazy.
I can't imagine New Hampshire voting for him. Anybody in New Hampshire, because they're watching right now, but anybody in New Hampshire that votes for Biden and Kamala, I really think I call her.
It is almost painful to see that happen. It's almost painful to see him so confused. But it's not painful because I feel bad for the man. It's painful because he has so much support. Do not take your foot off the pedal. We have to keep pushing. And guys, that is a show I have for you today. I promise tomorrow I will have the Ask You Anything segment again. But, you know, this is how it works. We have gone over. There's a lot to cover. And I will see you later today at noon on Nerd Avengers on Mary Trump Media. And we will cover this more then. Thanks for sticking with me. You've been great.